and peace. I'm Brian Muster, the Baptist Campus Minister at Drexel University, and this is Peace and Power Christian Fellowship, the peace of Jesus Christ to change your life, the power of the Holy Spirit to change the world. And we are continuing our journey through the Psalms entitled Beautiful Theology, looking at the truths of God through the lens of poetry. And this week, it's going to be a whirlwind tour. Literally, it will be a fast-paced journey of faith through the Songs of Ascents. This is a grouping of 15 Psalms, Psalms 120 through 134 in the Psalter that are they're all entitled Songs of Ascents, and they made up sort of like a unit inside the larger unit of the Psalms. This video, the introductory video, or the video one of this lesson, is going to be covering Psalms 120 through 124. So the first 5 of the 15, but a couple just notes of introduction here. The Songs of Ascents are a group of 15 Psalms which have a distinct feel and were used as Jewish pilgrims headed toward the temple in Jerusalem for one or all of the worship festivals. These are Psalms about being on the way. If you look at them as a whole, they start in a life far from God and end with participation in the worship of God. So there is a movement, theological movement from Psalm 120 that sort of tracks all the way through Psalm 134. And since we'll be covering 15 Psalms today, we are going to be moving fast. Now, we are going to be taking a journey, and we're going to look at these Psalms. But we're not going to break down and analyze these Psalms in a very, very detailed way like we have been on previous lessons and previous Psalms. We're going to be looking at more, how does this whole Psalm make us feel, or what's the one thought that this whole Psalm was meant to communicate as we were on the way to worship. This is going to be kind of cool. This is going to be how we're going to look at this in a way as if these Psalms were designed to prepare us for the worship of the Lord. A couple other notes, because of the nature of what we'll be covering, we'll be looking at the Psalms. We will try to feel them more than we examine them, and in order to do this, we'll be using Eugene Peterson's translation of the Psalms, The Message, and a commentary on the Psalms, on these specific Psalms, on the Songs of Ascents, entitled A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. I highly recommend this book. It's good. Anything Eugene Peterson writes is quality. And although the Message is not the translation of Scripture I would study, it is a great translation for devotion, for how you feel the Scriptures. And we'll look at that a little bit. But Eugene Peterson's translation of the Message started with these Psalms. He first translated these Psalms to get the feeling right, the literary and emotional content of the Scriptures right, while staying as true as possible to the wording. And it's interesting to note that the title of Peterson's commentary is actually a quote from Nietzsche, who was not a friend of religion, but at times understood faith in profound ways. And this is the quote, and it's from Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. There's a typo there. The essential thing in heaven and earth is that there should be long obedience in the same direction. Thereby results, and has always resulted in the long run, something which has made life worth living. So this idea that faith produces within us, through obedience to that faith, a life that is worth living, or something in life that is worth living for. So with those introductory comments, let's dive right into the first Psalm, Psalm 120. I'm in trouble. I cried to God, desperate for an answer. Deliver me from the liars, God. They smile so sweetly, but lie through their teeth. Do you know what's next? Can you see what's coming? Oh, you bold-faced liars. Pointed arrows and burning coals will be your reward. I'm doomed to live in Meshech, cursed with a home in Kedar. My whole life lived camping among quarreling neighbors. I'm all for peace, but the minute I tell them so, they go to war. So that's the first psalm. And I guess the pause and question here is, what is the first idea, the big idea? What is kind of the feeling of this psalm? What is the psalmist trying to communicate? And in the sense is, the psalmist is trying to communicate a dissatisfaction with where you are. You're living among people who lie, living in tents. You're living this among these people in a place that is just not where you want to be. Eugene Peterson says this psalm starts off with this away because a person has to get fed up with the ways of the world before she acquires an appetite for the world of grace. So the first step in any journey is the step toward or the step away from where you are. In order to start going towards God, you have to be dissatisfied, have to come to this conclusion that God is not where you are. And the psalmist in Psalm 120 just bemoans the fact of the place he is living is not where he wants to be. I said we were moving quickly. The next psalm, Psalm 121, goes like this. I look up to the mountains. Does my strength come from the mountains? No, my strength comes from God, who made heaven and earth and mountains. He won't let you stumble. Your guardian God won't fall asleep. Not on your life. Israel's guardian will never doze or sleep. God, your guardian, right at your side to protect you, shielding you from sunstroke, sheltering you from moonstroke. God guards you from every evil. He guards your very life. He guards you when you leave and when you return. He guards you now. He guards you always. So the first big idea is of this psalm. I'll pause a second, see if you can come up with something. But the big idea of this song is the protection of God. God will be with you. God is your help. God is guarding you. So put this with the last psalm, and the idea is if you're going to go, if you're going to leave where you are, go with God. It is a good thing that you're doing. It is a good thing that you're leaving where you are. It is a good thing that you are going, and God will protect you along the way. So the first psalm is let's get out of here. Second psalm is let God will be with you. God will be your help and your protection as you go. Psalm 122. When they said, let's go to the house of God, my heart leaped for joy. And now we're here. Oh, Jerusalem, inside Jerusalem's walls, Jerusalem, well-built city, built as a place for worship, the city to which the tribes ascend. All God's tribes go up to worship, to give thanks to the name of God. This is what it means to be Israel. Thrones for righteous judgment are set there, famous David thrones. Pray for Jerusalem's peace. Prosperity to all you Jerusalem lovers. Friendly insiders, get along. Hostile outsiders, keep your distance. For the sake of my family and friends, I say it again, live in peace. For the sake of the house of God, God, I will do my very best for you. So the idea I'm getting out of this in connection with the other two is, let's get out of here. And as we go, God will protect us. Where are we going? We're going to Jerusalem. We're going to the house of God. We are going to go and worship God. Now that we are going, we need to figure out where. Let's go to the house of God. That is where God is and where all God's people gather to worship him. So we now are on the path and we are getting to Jerusalem, and that is a good thing. Psalm 123. I look to you, heaven-dwelling God. I look up to you for help like servants alert to their master's commands, like a maiden attending her lady. We're watching and waiting, holding our breath, awaiting your word of mercy. Mercy, God, mercy. We've been kicked around long enough, kicked in the teeth by complacent rich men, kicked when we're down by arrogant brutes. The idea here is, okay, so we left. God is going with us. We went and made it to the temple, to Jerusalem. And now that we're there, what do? We wait for God in patient expectation that God will show up. And clearly, the God who has been with us is going to be there again. Karl Barth brings this out. The expression attendance may call to mind the fact that the New Testament concept diakonos, the word for deacon, originally meant a waiter. We must wait upon the high majesty of the divine word, which is God himself as he speaks in action. So now that we've come into the place of worship of God, we sit there and we wait in eager expectation for God to show up. The God who moved us out of wherever we were, who was with us along the way, who pointed us to the house of God. Now that we are in that house, we wait. And the final psalm for this section, Psalm 124. If God hadn't been for us, all together now, Israel, sing out. If God hadn't been for us, when everything went against us, we should have been swallowed alive by their violent anger. Swept away by flood of rage, drowned in torrent, we would have lost our lives in the wild raging water. Oh, blessed be God. He didn't go off and leave us. He didn't abandon us defenseless, helpless as a rabbit in a pack of snarling dogs. We've flown free from their fangs, free of their traps, free as a bird. Their grip is broken. We are free as a bird in flight. God's strong name is our help, the same God who made heaven and earth. So, looking at this one, just some of the ideas. What if God doesn't show up? We're waiting for God. What if God doesn't want us here? We're waiting on God. But while we're waiting on God, let me remind you who we are talking about. If God wasn't with us along this journey, we would still be back where we started, or worse. We would have never made it this far for this long without God. Praise the God who gets us through. So in these first 5 Psalms, we see this movement from living in a place where people are lying and dissatisfied with that, going with God, going to the temple of God, waiting on God at that temple. And now as we're waiting, reminding ourselves that this God is the God who got us this far so far. So as we wait, we can wait with confidence that the God who brought us here is also the God who will show up here. So those are the first 5 Psalms of the Songs of Ascents. As we move, we will continue this progression in the next video, looking at Psalms 125 through 129. As always, there are 3 ways to join. You can check out the calendar for more information. We do in-person Sunday nights at 5, live Monday nights at 7, and these weekly wrap-ups on YouTube and WordPress. I'm all over the social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, WordPress, YouTube. Those links are in the description. Enjoyed having this conversation with you and hope it continues real soon.